Welcome back to the Good Omen Podcast. I'm super excited, super grateful that you're here. As always, it is my hope, it is my prayer that you listen to today's show and that, you know, you're able to pluck 1, 2, 3, or 10 nuggets from this show, something that just resonates, something that inspires you, something that helps you see things from a different perspective, something that makes you laugh, something that makes you cry. I don't know. Jack always tells me the mark of a good podcast is you make somebody laugh, you make them cry, and what's the third thing? And you make them think. And as much as I'm making fun of him right now, he's right, and I think I don't know, hopefully the conversations that we have here on this show, bring you through that roller coaster of experiences. Yeah, man. Yeah, really grateful that you're here. I have a really incredible guest with me today. I'm super excited to have this guy on here. But before we get into today's content, I just want to take a moment and ask you guys for a favor. If you haven't already, please take a moment to rate the show. Leave a rating for the show. I ask you every time. And, it's something that takes only literally 2 seconds. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, all you got to do is press rate the show. Click the number of stars you would like and press submit, like for real, like a 2 to 5 second process. And if you're on YouTube, which is awesome, if you're on YouTube, just make sure you're subscribed to our show. Like, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, you just get recommended our videos once in a while. So that helps us out a lot. At least I think it does. I actually know nothing about the algorithm, but that's what I hear all the other podcasters say. So it must do something. Okay. But yeah. And then if you love the show, and if you really, love what we're about here at Omen, here, both me and the people that are the guests that I have on the show, who are part of the Omen community, and you want to support in a deeper way, you can always go to our website, omencoffeeco.com, and buy a bag of coffee, either for yourself or somebody else. It helps us out a lot, and that's really what makes the show possible. So without further ado, my buddy Louis Chaix. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Louis Chaix.
You got it.
Louis Chaix. Man, I'm really excited. But I want to kind of jump right back into what we were talking about off air. So you were talking about the slower pace over in Europe.
Yeah.
So you were born in France or born here?
I was born in France, right outside of Paris, small little town. Then when I was 2, moved to an even smaller town. And then just moved around France for hockey before I moved to Canada on my own when I was 14. So
you moved to Canada when you were 14?
Yeah, on my own. Well, actually, the first time I moved out of my house was 11. Moved like 4 hours away from my family in France to be in a better hockey program.
Yeah.
And then, my ultimate dream was to play hockey in North America. So when I was 14, I had the opportunity to do that and lived in North America ever since. So,
wow. Yeah. That's crazy. That's built. The hockey dudes are built different. For real. Because I played basketball, and basketball was my whole life, but I couldn't imagine moving to Turkey to when I was 14 to play.
Yeah, I get that. I get it.
That's crazy. So just for a little bit of context, you just signed to a new professional hockey team. Mm-hmm. But this is not your first professional hockey team.
It's gonna be my third pro year.
Yeah.
My first pro year was in Sweden.
Yeah.
And then I played this year in France, in the French Alps, right by Italy, Switzerland.
Yeah.
And then I just signed a contract right in Paris in Division 1.
Oh,
so,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
let's go, baby.
It's gonna be a good time. Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a long time coming, and being able to move up levels, divisions, play back home also is great. So
yeah,
just trying to.
That's right. You're from there, so playing there is like playing at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And I don't know anything about hockey, but a friend of mine who knows a lot about hockey, he knows the team that you signed with, and he was like, "Yo, that's actually that's a good team. That's not there's a lot of European hockey teams and leagues." He's like, "There's a lot of European hockey leagues." And some guys will come over and they'll tell you, "Yeah, I play pro overseas," and really it's equivalent to our Division 1, collegiate program. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But he was like, "No, that's a good league. That's a good team." And I was like, "Okay, I see you, Louis. I see you." But no, we were talking about just for a little context for you guys. Louis, you'll see by the end of the conversation. I wanted to have him on the show. Just like I said when I was interviewing Matt Graham, I only ask people to be on this show that I believe in. You know, like I believe in their
that,
character. I believe in their cause. I believe in their mission. I believe in what drives them. And I believe that they are going to do something or something significant, you know. And in my head, this kind of game that I'm playing is like, you know, I want to be the first ones to get to them. You know, I want to have them on. I want to have a paper trail of like, oh yeah, because I know that you're going to make a significant impact on the world around you, the people around you, etc. When you get there, there will be that, oh yeah, but I had him on the podcast way back when he was just Louis, you know. But yeah, so you guys will see that not only is he a professional hockey player, but he's an amazing human, and so that's why I wanted to have him on the show. Now, going back, okay, so we had to get that out the way. But you're saying about how the pace in Europe is so much slower. And like maybe who knows? American culture is just so different. But I've never been to Europe, but I hear about it and it sounds so romantic. It sounds ideal almost. The like fact that I don't think it's all of Europe, but like Spain or Italy where they take a break in the middle of the day, the siesta, you know, and they go and they have lunch for everything closes down for 2 hours. Like, and
there's like that in France too.
Well, there's just this nonchalance with which they approach life. Like, yes, we are going to go to work. Yes, we're going to be responsible. Yes, we're going to be adults. Yes, we're going to contribute. But like, we're also going to make sure we take time to enjoy every day, every meal, and I really romantically sort of fantasize about being able to create, to inspire people here around us to live that way too, even if it's to a lesser degree. Like even if it's just something as simple as like eating more mindfully and be like, man, this is really good.
Well, and on top of like eating more mindfully too, I just thought of this, like growing up, I would never, you know, like if I'm at home, I would never have a meal without everybody in the house eating at the same time as me. Whereas like in the US, you know, I've lived all over Canada, I lived all over the US in host families, and and it's crazy to me that, you know,
people just scarf down a meal in
there's
private.
Food in the fridge if you want, and the mom will eat at like 2 p.m. and then the son at 3 p.m. and the dad at 4. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like for us, like dinner time back home, even on a regular weeknight, we all sit down together, no phones at the table, and we just connect with each other in the good times and the bad times too. Like,
yeah.
When I was a kid and I had a bad day at school, like I knew I was going to hear all about it at dinner, but like that's something that's just so rooted in our culture, you know, to like sit down, take the time to eat. Yeah. You know, and like you can't get out of the table until like your dad says it's fine or your grandpa. Like, so yeah, I think that was a big cultural shock for me. But then again, it's very situational. Like in France, you take the time to live and you can enjoy your life and you really fit in that life that's built for you. Like, you know, go to school, get a degree, get a job, get married, have kids. And it's kind of drawn out for you. Whereas in the US, I feel like you can just become who you want.
And you can become anything you want.
Anything. And you don't need to have a degree. You don't need to follow this path. Mm-hmm. If you just don't take no for an answer, you can really just...
Yeah. So there's a trade-off, you're saying.
It's like, yeah.
And you were saying, what were you saying about the way that people, like if you're successful, people look at you differently?
Yeah, people look at you very different. It's envious. It's jealousy. It's not okay to be very successful and make a lot of money. Talking about money in France is like, you
taboo.
Don't do that. Yeah. So, you know, it's like...
That's interesting.
It's crazy because, I mean, you know, like in order to leave a certain impact, at some point you're going to need money. I mean, like, prime example, I'm not seeing a nice coffee shop if you can't provide the space for it. Yeah. You know, like you can still make an impact, but like to an extent.
It's only limited, yeah.
It's limited. So it just seems so negatively. And I don't know why it is, but it just the way it operates. And so I kind of disconnect from that aspect of things. But then it's also nice when I spend a lot of time in the US, go to France, and you get to just sit there and just breathe for a sec, you know.
It's amazing. You're probably slowing down. That's what I mean. It's like maybe I'm being unrealistic, but like, is there a best of both worlds? There
has to be. I don't know what that looks like though, because it's always, you know, when you train hard, people are like, is that healthy? Well, to accomplish a certain thing at some point, you're going to have to be unhealthy, in my opinion. It's just about choosing like, what it is, you know? Like, if you're pouring your heart and soul into your business, well, you're more likely to be successful than if you're like, you know, I'm just going to be balanced. It's about choosing that. And I guess being okay with where you're at and understanding what it takes, but
I think the happy medium would be somewhere. I think the only way to approach it, and you'll see over the years, like I'll actively work towards this because I really want to. There's a couple people that I have already come across that I think would provide good starting places. One is Jesse Itzler, and the other is Rob Dyrdek. You ever seen? You know who Rob Dyrdek is?
Yeah.
Small and Big or something like that. Anyway, or Robin Big, and then ridiculousness is his thing now. Okay, it's funny guy.
Yeah.
People don't know that he signed $1 billion deal for ridiculousness. $1 billion for 7 years. Anyway, Jesse Itzler has this thing. He shared it on Instagram one time, and it freaking imprinted on my brain. But he shared 2 pie graphs, and they were just split up, and it was like, one section was labeled like work, one section was labeled like family, one section was labeled like personal life, one section was labeled like social or whatever, right? And it was like in his 20s, like it was like 80%. It wasn't even percentages. It was they all added up to 24 hours in a day. So it was like in his 20s, he did like 14 hours a day of work, and he would only spend 2 hours a day with his family. And the one was sleep, and it was like 8 hours sleep. And then he had, so you could see the slivers. And then in his 40s now, he spends 12 hours a day with his family. He spends 2 hours a day working, and he spends 6 hours a day sleeping. So that really resonated with me deeply. And so and then Rob, I heard him on the Ed Milet podcast talking about how he takes the way his brain works is crazy, and I don't think anybody could do this, but he like literally quantifies. He puts everything into numbers, like basically on a spreadsheet, and he knows exactly what percentage of his time he's dedicating to work at any given time. And he's like, I make 360 episodes of ridiculousness a year, and I do that with only 4% of my time. That's how he's gotten it down. And he took drastic steps of like cutting out commuting time. Like they used to shoot every day. Now he only shoots like, 2 days a week. And like he drastically flipped his whole lifestyle on its head and said, let me start from scratch and figure out how can we accomplish these things in the most efficient way possible so that I can maximize the amount of time I get with my family or something like that. But like both of those guys, but what I was going to say is I think the starting place would just be implementing rituals, because I really feel convinced that it's quality over quantity. Quality of time is more important than quantity of time. So like even something simple like what you said of like making sure you eat dinner together every night. No matter what, you sit down for 30 minutes and you eat dinner together and you talk about your day or whatever, no phones at the table type deal. That's a ritual that you could implement that only actually takes you. You're going to eat at some point anyway. So it doesn't even actually cost you more time. You just have to schedule around it. So it could be inconvenient at times. But if you prioritize that, that's one thing that could be a step towards it. And then like something simple like this, like imagine if in the coffee shop we did online order only for to-goes, and if you buy it in here, it's served in a for here cup.
Yeah,
like it's for here only.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That way you have to sit down. Like you were saying in France when you guys go to eat lunch.
Yeah, you stop for coffee on the way, and then it's like, oh, there's a coffee shop. Let's sit down. You'll have an espresso. You'll drink it in about 10 seconds, and then you find yourself sitting there for 30 minutes talking with somebody.
Just chit chatting.
Yeah,
because you don't sit down for coffee without that part of it, which is just if you made it the standard, it would probably be a bad business move, but who cares? Good culture move. Good culture.
For sure. So, but there's both. Like when I spend a long time in France, sometimes I'm like, man, like I'm playing professional hockey. It's great, but like I know I also want to do so many other things.
Yeah, you just want to hit the gas pedal.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes the environment is not really for that. I mean, depends where you live again, like if you're in Paris or different cities, but like Yeah, I guess you just got to be where you're at and be okay with it, and then make the most out of the opportunity that's in front of you.
Mhm.
But at the same time, when you want more and you just don't want to go through the motions, like it's hard to not fall into that, okay, I can just take a day off. I can just be okay with not getting stuff done. And because the mentality is not so much like go, 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 it's even easier to stand out from everybody else, and people to point fingers are like, oh, why are you doing this?
It's crazy because they look at it in a negative light.
Yeah, and so, like even just with social media, like I'm in a very toxic masculine environment with hockey. Like, oh, here's the guy doing his Instagram stories. He's a little influencer, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Like the reason why you do this is to provide value to people around you, to connect. All my friends, a lot of my friends are here in St.
We have
Louis.
to keep track of you via social media.
Like I can't, and they can't either sit on the phone every day, like sending me messages and having conversations here and there. Yes. But like you can't, so it's a good way to like stay in touch with people and connect. But it's something that people need to learn more about, and it's not really in our culture yet. We're getting more Americanized in Europe. Like we have a lot more fast food. We have like the way we live. Even in the French language, we use a lot of English words. Mm-hmm. Which is funny because in Canada, French Canadians don't do that as much.
They won't do that at all.
Yeah, like even fast foods, like they won't use the actual name. Sometimes they'll switch it to a French version. Where us, it's like McDonald's. We have that, and we say it like that. So it's like I don't know.
Big Mac.
Yeah, like, literally. We have the Mac baguette though, so
really?
no big deal.
That's funny.
But yeah,
it is incredible to observe. Especially if you have a high enough level of self-awareness, it's incredible to observe like the impact that your environment has on your thought process.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
And you have to like mindfully and intentionally fight against what you are naturally feeling drawn to, which we're all naturally, we have a natural propensity to want to conform to the attitude, the mindset, the lifestyle, the behaviors that people are doing around us. So like, for you, you're like, man, I have, all these other things I want to do, but it's so easy to be like, I'll just do it tomorrow. Cause that's the French lifestyle. It's a mentality. It is really, it's almost dangerous, like, it's almost like if you're somebody that's ambitious, you got to like run away from environments like that,
Yeah. And even like, they're so stuck on like the norm that everybody else is supposed to follow. Like, oh, but do you have a degree? Do you have this? Do you have that? No? Well, yeah, come. We don't even want to have that conversation. It's like they put a wall in front of you, and you're okay. Well, so it's good. I guess I love that I get to experience both. But when I get here, it's like okay, it's good. A lot of people back home are like, oh, you're going on a trip, like on a holiday trip, like vacation for like a month and a half. I'm like, I have about 11 months of like work to just like hammer and create these opportunities and connect with people because like. Yeah, like
because I'm not gonna be able to do it over here. Yeah.
Yeah. So
how is now that you've made it into like a really respectable league and you're at the pro level, even you've been there for a couple of years. How is it being like a professional athlete in this sport? Is it like what you always imagined it would be, or is it different in some ways? And
Yeah, I think it's we always have these crazy expectations. I think about where you could end up playing, where you would like to play, and then hockey just has taken me places I never thought I would have been. Like, I mean, I ended up north of Sweden, like 150 miles, not even from the Arctic Circle. Mm-hmm. Like 2 hours of sunlight a day in the winter. Like,
no way.
Crazy experience.
Yeah.
Like see the northern lights and everything. I mean, just a very crazy experience. And so,
what is it that causes the northern lights? You don't know?
Asking the wrong guy.
Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even want to get because I have no idea. But I saw it on my very last night in Sweden when I was leaving. It's just
incredible,
it's insane. Wow, I was like, I can't believe
that far north is probably pretty vibrant too.
Oh my god, it's like it was like daylight almost, but
really?
Just colorful. It was crazy. It is what I had imagined in a sense, but also not like, you picture a lot of professional athletes being like very healthy, being very driven, motivated, very positive people. It's not everybody's like that.
Really?
Like there's people that perform extremely well with very poor lifestyles. Like, but it's actually insane. But the thing is, it's working for them.
Yeah.
Like I know that
Those are people that are just naturally just gifted.
And you're sitting there, you're like, dude, I spend all this time in the gym, in the kitchen, like getting my sleep.
Yeah.
I put tape on my mouth when I go to bed so I breathe better. Like,
Yeah.
I try everything and anything I could just so I can be a part of it and, like, you know, be successful also. But, like,
Yeah.
you have to do these things. And then there's guys that are just like,
Yeah.
let me get hammered 6 days a week. Like,
Yeah. I'll show up on game time and score a couple goals.
and it's like, oh, okay, sure, bud. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a great, the thing about team sports though is, like, as beautiful as it is, it can be very hard when you're in that situation, because, like, you're doing what you can to be a good teammate, to show up, lead by example, doing all these things. But really, like, there's so many things that are your control.
Yeah.
And which is a beautiful thing, because you get to focus on what you can control and what you do, which is what matters really. But
Yeah, do your best to contribute.
But when I compare it to my journey across the U.S., well, it was all up to me.
Yeah.
And I got out of it what I poured into it. And if it failed because of me. If it succeeded, it's because I put in the work and people believed in me. But, like, so yeah, it's just sometimes it's hard to, like, understand this, like, balance and kind of, like, piece it all together and be understanding, because not everybody wants to live that lifestyle and wants to, like, proactively get better, take care of themselves. And
But you're a pro. Like, you're a pro. Like, it's got to be so frustrating.
And it comes
for you
down
for you to be doing everything that you possibly can to, like, give yourself an edge, and then you see your teammate, like, drinking every night, and it's like, what? Do you want to win or what? Like,
well, and that's the thing that's hard is, like, you know, like, this year we had an incredible season, finished regular season champs. We lost, like, I can't even remember the exact number, so I'll just say something like 6 games the whole season. And then playoffs, we thought.
How many games is in a season?
It was only 18 games in the season,
Yeah.
so we lost like 4 games or something. I don't know. Next year, though, in D1, it's going to be more games, like double. But yeah, like we get to the playoffs and we're like, okay, we finished first. We're going to have, we're going to have the best route to the championship. And we ended up playing all the top teams behind us in our division. And we're like, so while we're beating all the really good teams, double overtime and stuff like that, well, the team that we met in the final was playing lower seed teams from the other division. They ended up playing really good teams also, but when we made it to championship round, it's like our team was just like, oh, okay, we're
just dead.
We're there. And we were dead. Like, there's a game in semifinals, we're losing 5-1 after the first period, and we win 6-5 in overtime.
Wow.
Like, imagine the roller coaster and the emotion. Like,
that's crazy.
But the thing, like, yeah, our team was just so resilient, and that was really something I really took away from that. Was our group was like, it wasn't over till it was done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess we got to the final and we had nothing left. We split the series 1-1, and then we went to play at their rink, and we were done. Like, they had 4 lines, they were rolling. We had injuries, suspensions, and just didn't align for us, which is tough because I've played
made
hockey.
it to the championship.
I've played hockey for 22 years. It's my first time playing a championship game.
Wow.
Like, you don't know when that happens.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of things need to come together for that to happen. And so, yeah, you get handed a silver medal. And in Europe, they're, like, big on being a vice champion and all these things. And don't get me wrong, it's a great accomplishment.
No.
But I'm like,
yeah.
that to me, I'm like,
hey, you spent just enough time in America to be like, I want this fucking second place
dude.
trophy.
I was like, about to toss it now, but, like, even my parents were trying to get a photo with me after the game with the medal because they're happy, they're proud, But I was like, guys, I need a couple days. Like, I can't.
Yeah, I don't want to take a photo.
I don't want to. I'll take a photo with you, but I don't want this thing around. And it's good. Like, I look at it now and I'm like, you know what? I have a piece of hardware I can have to look at and get pissed when I don't want to train. And
yeah,
I work a lot with, like, negative motivation. Like, a tap on the back's always nice, but that's not what gets me out of bed in the morning. Like, tell me I can't do it. Now we're talking. Now I'm like, thanks, And
do you get a lot of that, like, negative feedback, or do you just hang on to stuff you've collected over the years?
I collect it. I've gone. Knock on wood, I haven't gotten that much, but what I've gotten was very, very impactful.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable sharing it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I was first of all, the very first thing I always held on to was when I was sick in the hospital, and I was 6. I had a near-death experience, And then right before my near-death experience, the doctor walks in the room and he tells my mom, like, hey, you know, if he's not better tonight, he'll be dead tomorrow morning. Have a good one. And I remember telling my mom, like, because I was awake, but my eyes were closed. And I hear my mom crying in the hospital room. I'm like, Mom, you know what? He doesn't get to say what I do. And I didn't understand what dying was like because I was so young. And I was like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to play hockey in North America one day. And had my near-death experience and all that crazy stuff. And then, boom, I survived. And I was like, whoa. So I held on to that, him telling me I couldn't live. And then I made it through. And then, you know, my biological father, for example, when I told him I wanted to go to Canada, just because I wanted to share something with him, he was like, well, it's kind of stupid. You want to do that? If you want to do that, like, go ask for your stepdad. He'll put the bills in for you to do that because I don't really give a fuck. And I was like, okay. Collect that, thank you.
Yeah.
And then coaches over the years, like, oh, you want to go to Canada? You're like, you're psychotic. Who the fuck you think you are? Like,
yeah,
your parents are fucking crazy. Like, you should be interned in a psychiatric hospital. Like, all this shit for having dreams.
That's crazy.
You know, and that's what I'm saying. When you want to be successful, you have aspirations in France, you can run into a lot of that. And so what I did over the years, like, go back to France, or you're a good kid, or like,
wow,
these things, I collect them. And so
you have a tattoo that says you're a good kid?
This was in college in Boston. I committed to play NCAA D3, which in hockey it's like D1, D3 anyways.
Yeah.
And first year, freshman year, played like 18 games out of 24. So it's going well, doing great in school, like 4.0 GPA. Like, I'm like, okay, sweet. So my coach at the end of the season is like, Louis, come back in the best shape of your life next season, and you'll have all these opportunities. Like, we're talking like big opportunities. So I'm like, okay. Dude, I train like, just like we talked upstairs, like a maniac, bro.
Yeah.
I aced all the fitness testing, finished first in pretty much everything, and had a great training camp. And so he brought in 70 new players that year at the tryout on top of the team that was already here.
Yeah.
And we're all in line after the last game to go talk to him, but he keeps calling people behind me. So I end up sitting there after practice for like 2 hours, and at some point he calls some guy behind me. I'm like, hold on, because you're new here. I was here last year. I just want to talk to the coach, see like what's up, you know, so I can leave. And I go in. He's like, oh, Louis, just go shower, come back after. So I go back in his office, and it's him, the athletic director, assistant coach, and I forget who was there. And he's like, you know, man, you're a really good kid. No, like, seriously, like, your teachers love you, your teammates love you, but you're a really good kid. But I just don't know what to do with you in this team. Like, but you're a really good kid, though. And I looked at him and I was like, me being a good person and a good human being, my character, who I am, has nothing to do with my ability to be on your team. Look at the numbers. Look at my camp. Look at what you told me and you promised me and this and that. This is completely detached from who I am. Like, that's just me. He's like, well, like I said, you're a really good kid, so come back tomorrow for practice and we'll see how that goes. I ended up making the team as the last forward, and then he played me like 6 games that season. I played like less than 2 minutes a game.
Really?
After playing 18 games my freshman year, so that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And got stuck at home for COVID, and I ended up transferring to Missouri State. But that's things like this, I hold on to them. I don't look into them so much that they like weigh on me, but I use them as fuel. And so I also did this thing.
Clearly, you got that one tattooed.
Yeah. I used this thing on my iPad. I cropped everybody's photo that would talk shit or say things like this. I put them all on one poster.
No way.
With their quotes. I printed it, and I would put it when I was preparing my journey or like training for hockey. I printed it and I put it on my bedroom door. So every time I would leave my room to go about my day, I would see it.
Yeah.
And dude, just kind of tricking my mind and being like, you know what? I'm doing it for me, just to prove you that you should have believed in me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always resonated more with dark energy is what I think of it as versus, you know, light energy or positive energy. And I've always I feel like I've been driven more by wanting to or feeling like I need to overcome, like I need to like prove myself, or even just to me. But I also like remember things that people say, and I remember things that people did, and it's crazy though. I never ever thought I would say this, but because I used to like, I identified with that side of me. But for the first time in my life, I'm starting to like, I genuinely feel like I'm more motivated by I don't want to say love, but like the altruism that I feel for just the people around me. And like, I'm really grateful for like my life and for the fact that I'm still here and things worked out the way they did. And, they didn't have to. I didn't have to be here. I didn't have to be healthy. I didn't have to be out of prison. I didn't have to be alive right now, but I am. And so like now I for the first time in my life, I think that I'm driven more by like gratitude and, those feelings than by that negative stuff. But I resonate with what you're saying deeply.
Yeah, and I'm on the same page with you with that. It's like this takes a certain spot in my life, but it's very categorized.
Yeah, like in hockey or
in hockey or like my training. It's like for those times where I'm like, I need that.
Pull it out.
Let the dogs out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I resonate with what you just said. My buddy Josh in Springfield, met him when I was in college, and he said something to me. He's like, always choose love. Mm-hmm. Choose love, seek peace. And he said something else. I can't remember exactly, but the one that stuck with me the most was choose love, because I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, like whatever I'm doing, if I'm choosing to do it with love and like good intentions, if people can't receive that or whatever, and it's on them, it's not on me.
Yeah,
and that way it takes off such a weight off your shoulders, And even on my journey when I was skating and people would honk at me or throw shit at me or like try to run me off the road, I was like, man, I'm sorry you're having such a bad day, but I hope you feel better now.
Yeah.
I hope that I was the reason that you let all this shit out and that now your day's just going to get better. And the second I started thinking this way, things were just aligning for me and were getting easier. So
yeah, no, for sure. So you've mentioned your journey a couple times now, but I definitely don't know that the audience knows what you're talking about. So talk about your journey. Like I genuinely, I know what you did.
Yeah.
But I don't know why you did it. Yeah. I don't know what led to that decision. Yeah. I don't know how long you thought about it until you actually realized you were going to do it. Like, so talk a little bit about that.
So I was in France. I was 6 years old. I was in school, just a normal day. And then this whole day, people were like, Louis, are you okay? You seem really tired. What's wrong? And I was kind of confused because
6 years old?
6 years old. I was at school and I was like, well, I'm tired, but I'm fine. And I got home that night, flu-like symptoms, and I had been playing hockey for 2 years at that point. And my mom's like, Louis, you want to go to hockey practice tonight? And I was like, no. And that's when she knew something was up, because I've never, other than this one practice, I've never purposely missed a practice. And so we're watching TV, and I start getting super itchy. Like, I cannot stop itching, and my mom's a nurse, so she's freaking out. She's like, Louis, stop. Like, she's getting mad almost because she's scared. Takes me to the ER. They don't find anything. I go to bed. The next morning, I wake up, and I have blisters all over my body, head to toes. And we're like, oh, shit, what's that? Takes me to the hospital. They don't know what it is, and it just keeps getting worse. So I get more of them, and then my skin is just peeling off.
Yeah.
Head to toe, second-degree burns, 80% of my body. And
second-degree burns?
Yeah. From all over. And so while that's happening on the outside, I'm also burning on the inside. But they still can't figure out what's wrong. So they're putting me through all these surgeries, these treatments, but it's basically torture at this point. And up until the day where I'm like dying, and they're airlifting me to the burn unit in Paris. And without even telling my mom just sensed something was wrong. And the one night she decided to go home, she woke up, no phone, no key, nothing. She just left. And when she got at the hospital, they were loading me on the helicopter. So they wouldn't let her on. I got to the hospital, and then that's where I had the near-death experience. After the doctor said that, I was like, you know what? I'm really tired. I just want to rest for a second. I'm so tired of fighting, because when your body's giving up on you and you're dying, it's all up here.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I'm just going to rest for a second. And when I did that, my body became super heavy. And I felt my soul literally getting dragged out of my face, like sucked out. And I was going up in the sky, and I could see this pink sky, this pink clouds, and my face in the cloud, until I became my own face. And I'm just looking down at the world, and I asked myself two questions. They were, why is everybody so stressed out and running around? And why are they so sad that I'm up here? And all of a sudden, I don't know, it just like, I kind of like came back.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, I might be okay. And things miraculously started getting better because there was no treatment for it. There's still no treatment. They're finding things now, but it was just pain management. It's either you make it or you don't. And so after that, for 2.5 years, I couldn't be in the sun directly. Like I could go outside, but I had to be covered. And so I guess the disease I had is called toxic epidermal necrolysis. It's the highest branch of Stevens-Johnson syndrome. And it's extremely rare. It's more common in the US because of the medication use. But in France, the year I had it, only 3 people out of 67 million were diagnosed with it.
Wow.
And I was
one of them.
And so
you've always been exceptional.
you know what? I had to stand out somehow. Yeah. And so when you come this close to dying at such a young age, it changes everything. And for me, I was like, well, from a young age, I understood that, hey, if I can survive this, I can do whatever I want. And I'll go play hockey in North America one day. That was my goal. That was my dream. So when I was 11, like I told you, I moved, be in a better program, and then 14 made the switch. And so I did all these years in North America. And after I transferred schools from Boston to go to Missouri State, got settled. And I was in a great spot in my life, very grateful, you know, like really doing exactly what I wanted to be doing. But I was like, man, I was dealing with a lot of survivor's guilt. Why is it that I'm alive? Why did I survive? Because if you survive this thing, usually, like, you're dealing with so many second effects. Like, you're supposed to be blind. People have their eyelashes growing to their eyes, dental problems, flare-ups, handicaps too. Like, I mean, crazy things. Yeah. And for me, all I have left is these 2 scars on my face, like, and a sensitive skin to the sun, but who cares? Yeah. And so I was like, man, why do I get to live this life and just chase my dreams, travel the world, and just be happy when all these people are left with no answers? And not just the people in this field of my disease, but like in general, cancers, you name it, or even just a married man or married woman who's very unhappy in their life and they're just never acted on their dreams. Like, I got to do more. I have to do more. And all my life, I knew I wanted to get involved, but I didn't know how or when. And so when I moved to Missouri State, my teammates would always go rollerblading around campus like the Mighty Ducks. And they gave me a pair to join them, and kind of became a routine thing. So one day I'm with my buddy Garrett, my roommate and teammate. We're skating down Sorority Row, and I'm like, dude, it'd be crazy to skate across America. Like, it'd be absolutely wild. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, it'd be dope, but you can't do that. Like, psh, yeah, it's impossible. And so I got home and I'm in the shower and I'm like, dude, you need to do this, but you need to find a reason why. And so I always say this. We tend as human beings to minimize the things we accomplish and the things we go through because it's our norm, it's our story. And so, oh yeah, I had a skin disease when I was young, but like that doesn't define me. But then again, it's like, dude, like you can use that story. Everybody has a story and needs to use it. And so I was like, wow, you could really just make an impact, raise funds for research, give hope to people, help families. And that's where I was like, wow, you're onto something. And then from there, made some phone calls for 3 weeks straight with no answers. And I just kept going, and I just kept going, and I just kept going. And then on the very last try, somebody finally picked up the phone. And I was like, hey, my name's Chaix. I'm going to rollerblade across America for this, and that. The next day I got connected with Vanderbilt University, the research center. And then from there I was able to create a team through friends that heard what I wanted to do. Melanie in Fenton, she lives in Fenton here. And it's all thanks to her. I got to build a whole team and work with a movie producer, Ryan Delaney. We filmed my whole preparation as to why I was doing this and the whole journey. And we're coming out with a documentary next year. Really? Yeah.
Let's go.
It should be done in July here for us to watch, send our notes to the editor, send it to movie festivals all through next year. And then June next year, after Summer Smash, is when we're hoping to do our theatrical release, our first one here in St. Louis.
Ooh, so, let's go.
Yeah, we're going to do a big event. But so, yeah, decided to rollerblade from Venice Beach Skate Park all the way to Times Square, New York City. I was a broke college student. I was still playing college hockey. I was going to school, and I was training 8 hours a day for this. Yeah. On top of, like, trying to survive in America when you can't make money. So, yeah. It was wild, and my preparation was so much. Like my life, it took me 2 years to prepare this.
Really?
I had this idea on September 16th, 2020, and I started June 1st, 2022. And so my preparation for this was just so insane that when I started it, I just felt like I was on a break, you know?
What do you mean?
Because for a year and a half, I would sleep 2 hours a night because there's only 24 hours in a day. So kind of what you were saying about those graphs, it's like, okay, well, wake up at this hour, train, go to class, work,
Practice.
train, hockey practice, train, homework. And then it leaves me with 2 hours. And so I remember I departed Venice Beach, and I remember taking my first stride, and I'm like, you've never been this far from your goal. Like from LA, from New York.
Yeah.
And I was like, in that moment, I could have been very scared, but I was like, that's great news because I just took another one and I'm closer now.
Yeah.
And the signs and all the things that happened to me throughout this journey made me feel so aligned. I never questioned whether I was going to be able to accomplish it or not. I knew I was going to make it happen. It was just a matter of how.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, talk about, they call it the magic of the highway. It's like when you're out there on the road by yourself, and just all these crazy things happen, and you're like, I could sit there and talk about it for hours, but people sometimes look at me and they're like, no way that happened. And I'm like, I'm telling you, but nobody was here to see it, you know?
Yeah. Like what?
This one time I'm stuck in the desert for hours. Both my support vans are down. The RV's down, and then the support car is down too. I have no service on my phone. Middle of the desert. It's 116 degrees outside. The pavement's melting. Like hell. Absolute hell. And I'm skating. I have no more water in my bag. There's not a spot with shade. I don't even know if I'm going the right direction. And every time I had a meaningful conversation with somebody, I held onto their names like they were on my shoulder. Mm-hmm. And when I would run into a tough spot, I'd look up in the sky and be like, you know, Gary, Josh, this, that. Guys, I need your help. Like, help me with something. And in this time, it was water. I needed water. But there's no gas station. I don't have service. There's nobody around. I haven't seen a car in 6 hours. And literally 15 seconds after I said this and looked up in the sky, I hear a car. I turn around. This car pulls up next to me. This little Mexican lady looks at me. And she hands me 2 waters, 2 Gatorades. And I was in shock. I grabbed them.
No way.
She didn't even say thank you or hi or like good luck. Are you okay? She didn't even say anything. Hands me the waters. I grab them. And then they just leave. And I was like, what? And the car just disappears. And you're like, and I was like, wow. But that's one thing if it happens once. But it happened repeatedly. Another time is, had my worst day. I only skated 29 miles that day. I was feeling super defeated, and we were very lucky to have a hotel for that night because usually we slept in the RV.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in the hotel lobby. I need some time to myself. I'm pissed off, and this lady at the counter is like, Louis, like, well, she didn't say Louis. She's like, hey man, like, you look funny. Like you're wearing like a cyclist suit. You got skates. Like, what are you doing? And so I started telling her that I'm skating across America to raise money for this skin disease I survived. And she looks at me and she starts crying. And I'm like, what did I say? Like, am I being delirious right now? Like, is everything okay? And she's like, well, you know, Louis, like my son has a very, very rare skin disease. And it's very close to what you had. Skin is wrapped in bandages every day. Everything's falling off of his body. And sometimes I feel sad for him. I feel scared. I want him to have a good life, and seeing what you're doing makes me believe that one day I'll grow to be a strong man. And I'm like, dude, like, and these moments would move me so much. Like I remember being like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Just the people I met, the things I've encountered, like it's all a blur almost because you're so in it, you know, it's.
I feel like when you're doing something that's like when you undertake a momentous task, like when you start climbing, you know, a proverbial Mount Everest, you know, like skating across America, even to a lesser degree, like running 100 miles, you know, if you have a massive vision for what you want to build in your life, the life you want to build. Like I have a massive vision for the life I want to build in the community that we're building here at Omen. Like I don't even share it. It's so, it almost makes you embarrassed to talk about.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you have the courage to like embark on it anyway, like the seemingly impossible task, I feel like it's amazing how what you call it, whatever you want, the universe or God or what you call it, anything you want. But it's amazing how those moments of confirmation,
they everywhere.
They come at just the right times. Like you think there's moments where you really need it and it doesn't show up, but those actually aren't the moments because you make it through those moments. Yeah. But in the moment, you feel like this is a moment where I really need it. And you didn't really need it because you made it through that moment. Yeah. But there was moments when you really needed it. And every time you really needed it, it was there, which is just great because I experienced stuff like that just through this process. This has been very difficult, very stressful, very, in a lot of different ways. But there has been moments where like I've just started to like be like, man, am I really on the right path? And then boom, yes, you're on the right path
every time,
and you need to keep going. Yeah,
and that just shows that you're aligned and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And what was cool is that I saw myself grow so much in 45 days, and I really had to detach from that finish line because it was never about that.
Wasn't about
kind of like
line.
Life. You're born and you die. But you don't care about these events. What matters is like what's in between, right?
Is the in between.
And so for me, for my journey, that's what it was. I remember when I was training, I was thinking about those negative things we talked about earlier, and I was thinking about actually seeing it through in the finish line. And I pictured this image of the finish line being this huge celebration, kind of like a team winning a championship, or like I had just created this image in my mind because I didn't know what it was going to be like. And when I got there, the first thing that crossed my mind was not, oh, I made it. It was like, oh, fuck, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And that's where like you're not prepared. People told me to prepare for afterwards, that you can get depression, this and that, and never really listened to it because you can't necessarily prepare for that. And yeah, it's just amazing how I was able to detach myself from the outcome. And just take it one day at a time, because each day on the road was so different. Like anything happened, like everything that we could have possibly imagined and so much more happened to me, good and bad, on this journey.
Yeah.
And it was just like, how can I make this moment right here, right now more meaningful? Like, what's the purpose behind it? Why am I pissed off? Why am I happy? Why, am I enjoying this moment? What makes it so special? What makes it so hard? And what I really learned was that everything was temporary. I could be in like the worst weather with the worst hill and the worst traffic and whatever, but I was able to wear that with a smile and be like, good, because it's just going to get better. It can't get any worse than that in this moment. And tonight I'll be in bed.
Yeah.
This is going to end. And as soon as I accepted that and kept moving forward, everything changed. I started skating more miles. I started feeling better. I started being a better teammate on my team for my crew, better leader. I was, having better conversations with people, bringing more awareness to what I was doing, and everything again just aligns. And
it's crazy. We were talking on one of, I think our most recent episode actually with, we just had a guest on here. He is the mental performance coach for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Wow.
So he's kind of like a Tim Grover, but for professional. I mean, almost exactly the same thing. He's just not as well known.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how incredible it is that you can be hypothetically, you can be in a situation where nothing changes on the outside. Nothing about your circumstances change, but everything changes because you change your perspective or you change your mindset, the way you think about it. It's so powerful to really accept how much of an influence your mentality has on your overall experience of life. Like you can be happy. Mm-hmm. Like that's saying that, I don't say that lightly. Like happiness is something that I actually don't think many people ever maintain. I don't think, I think we have fleeting moments of happiness, but the people who actually attain and maintain a state of internal peace and happiness, that's very rare, but you can do it. All you have to, and nothing around you has to change. Nothing. Just up here. Yeah. So it's crazy how you, and then what also I'm hearing is like, I'm really big on like mantras or cues. Like I will say things to myself the same way over and over and over again, and it will be like a cue that gets me to like remember. Like I'll give you a stupid example. When I'm in the coffee shop, I talk to several hundred people a day sometimes, and it's like I can be, I'm my 150th person today, and I can feel tired, and I can just want to make it a transaction. I'm always good at customer service. Yeah. Hey, I'll take your order, whatever. But I'll remind myself, no, Mark, this is worship. And I tell myself that's my reminder that you need to be pouring into these people. If they can't feel that you're grateful, if they can't feel what you're trying to accomplish here, if they don't walk out, knowing that this experience was different, then you just you're not an order taker. This is worship. Yeah. And so that's my cue. This is worship. It reminds me, it brings me back. But you were like, hey, this is only temporary. Like that, I think.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass.
Exactly what I would tell myself. And it was just wild. Also, another thing was kind of like your cues there. It's like I realized that we put a lot of words into this world. We talk. But sometimes just to fill in a space. Yeah. We rarely sit and like listen and pay attention to like what comes out of our mouth, how it affects our environments and our happiness. Yeah. And so for me, it really hit me because I would spend 12 hours a day on my own in the middle of nowhere. So not only all the shit that you've put behind in your life, in your brain, like you have to face it because there's no distractions. Yep. But also like the way you talk to yourself and the way you talk about your environment, your conditions affects you. For me, I could be like, man, it's so hot right now. I wish it was raining. I could guarantee you that within the next 2 hours, there was a storm that would pass through and I would get hit on with rain for like 3 days. Yeah. And then it's like, oh man, the wind is always like blowing me into traffic from right to left, and 2 hours later 120 mile an hour wind, whatever it was in the cliff. Yeah. And so I had to be really careful with what I was saying because every time I would speak it into existence almost. Yeah. And it was hard because, for example, I don't think I found, and I say this in the most humble way, like I have not found my physical limit doing this. I was really prepared. I was really trained. It was hard, but I didn't hit my limit. It was harder mentally, but it's something I wanted to talk about on my journey because I was like, why am I feeling like this? Is it normal? Am I lying to myself? Am I actually? But I could never have that conversation with my team because I was like, well, I'm not in New York yet.
Yeah, you don't want to discourage them.
And I don't want to discourage them, and I don't want to speak into the world that it's too easy and now something's going to happen to me. And it was great because then you're like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. It's not why I was doing it, but like it's a challenge. It seems impossible, and then you're doing it so well that it's almost confusing. Yeah. And yeah, it was just beautiful to be able to learn to just take a second and be like, why am I about to say what I'm about to say? Like, am I filling up a space? Am I understanding how that could affect everybody else? And so
I think that's a superpower. I legitimately think that's a superpower. Like because what you're talking about is cultivating a level of self-awareness and mindfulness and intentionality that most people never, ever even get close to. Yeah. It's just literally just taking a split second to think about what you're going to say before you say it, and then consider the effect that it's going to have on you, your mindset, and the people around you. Anybody that can hear it. Yeah. And being full transparency, I get down on myself sometimes because I go through this process of self-assessment almost every day. I mean, that's like my journaling thing. Yeah. Like I journal and I self-assess, and every day too. And I'm very honest with myself. I try to be very honest with myself about where I'm at, what I'm doing well, what I'm not doing well. At one point, I had attained a level of intentionality and mindfulness and self-awareness with my speech. Like I didn't swear at all. I went through this period where like I was going through these practices of renunciation. something I'm huge on is subtraction before addition. A lot of times, like improving your life, improving your finances, improving your relationship, improving your situation in any way, it could be drastically reduced if you stop asking yourself, what more can I do? And just start asking yourself, what do I need to stop doing? And so I was going through levels of this. I started with like my diet, and then I started with my behaviors, the way I socialize. And then I realized what you basically just realized is like, so many of us just talk just to talk.
It's crazy.
We just talk.
And then you notice it when people, I'm like, oh, well, maybe this person is just filling up some sort
we
of
all do
we do it guilty, like,
but we just talk just to talk. And so I thought it would be interesting to go through an exercise of I realize that most of what I say on a daily basis is just my opinion. It's not like rooted in it. It's not rooted in experience. It's not rooted in like a stupid example is sports. Like we'll talk about, oh, like LeBron James is better than Kobe Bryant, or like, it's not rooted in any personal life experience. It's just literal opinion, right? So I said, I'm gonna renounce sharing my opinion. And so I went through this process of just staying quiet unless I was either speaking from personal experience or speaking from knowledge of facts, cool. Right? And I spoke so much less. And you know what happened? People listened to me so much more.
It's wild.
It was crazy.
Do you ever say that to somebody that's quiet for a while and then all of a sudden they crack a joke? And it's maybe not the funniest joke you've heard, but because that person hasn't said anything for an hour, you're like, wow, that was so good. Well, yeah, it's exactly that, And so there's another cool thing about journaling. It's just like you, I've always enjoyed writing, and I think thoughts come and go, but to be able to transfer them on paper, like you can see it.
Powerful.
So to be ready for this journey, I had to find truly who I was. And so I started journaling every day. And then through some sponsor brand I was working with for my journey, they connected me with this guy, Joe Lindley. And so Joe had crossed the U.S., totally different route on his bike, and he almost died doing it. And Joe was like, dude, I love what you're doing. You and I are very similar. We both read the Daily Stoic. Like, he actually worked for Ryan Holiday, which was
nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
At his house. And so him and his two buddies that were on the journey with him met us in Oklahoma. They drove 8 hours to come meet us, and so Joe could be on the road with me.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that they created this deck of cards when they were on their journey, where they wrote questions on, and they would go up to strangers and be like, hey, would you please answer one of those questions? They would connect, and then maybe these people could help them along the way, and they could meet more people. They turned this thing into like a business, like a product they sell now. And so it's called the Hero's Deck Journey. And when you answer all these questions in order on all these cards, you get to write your own story, your own narrative.
Got it.
And it goes from like the number 2 is the easiest card, and then the ace is the hardest. And then it's the 4 elements. And it was just so cool to see like that they used a tool like this to understand who they were, connect with more people, and then like use it. And I used that tool, and it's crazy what you realize. And I just reread my journal from like 2 years ago where I completed it, and I'm like, wow, I'm so different now.
Yeah.
And I always say I always tell that to people, like, just try journaling. Like, you don't have to write a whole paragraph. Just try it. Oh yeah, I hate it. It's not for me. I never liked it. And then they start doing it, and they don't stop. And I'm like, there's so much power, and like, it's a great strength to be able to sit down with yourself and be like, this is where I'm showing up well, this is where I'm fucking up, and like where I need to be better, and understand that. Because how can you help other people around you if you're not able to understand who you are?
Yeah. You don't understand. You don't know if you actually believe what you think you believe. You don't know if your values are actually your values. You don't. But I think that there's a prerequisite to actually having journaling be useful and valuable for you. And this could shed some light on why some people say they tried it and they don't like it. But unless you get to the point where you can be brutally honest with yourself, like where you can just be honest. That's why that's where the shirt comes from, the quit lying to yourself, because that's what changed my whole life, because I used to lie so much. Mm-hmm. Like, just not even like, like just stupid, like mindlessly. Like, I would just lie about stuff I didn't even have to lie about. Like, I just for no reason. And I would lie so much that I would believe my own lies. Like
Yeah.
I would just,
Because you'd have no more reality now. It's like,
yeah, I could believe my own lie. And so when I decided to stop lying and just be brutally honest with myself and other people all the time, and I just kind of like fiercely committed to that, it changed everything. It changed everything. That's when I started journaling, you know. And then when you can be honest with yourself about where you're at, who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, why do you feel this way, how you're feeling, the thoughts you're having, then journaling becomes valuable, because then it can shed some light. Like you just said, you went back and reread a journal from 2 years ago. Be like, wow, I'm so different now. Well, that's because you get an accurate representation of who you were. Back then, if you were still in this lying to yourself, you could talk in your journal as if you're further along than you are, as if you're more mature than you actually are, as if you're not feeling the way that you're actually feeling. You're lying to yourself. But if you are honest there, then it can shed some light on the process and on your evolution as a person.
I always say this to people that tell me they don't want to journal, they're scared to get started. It's like, we're all human beings and we all mess up.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot be the only person who's messed up in their life, who's heard people, who's done this or that. Like, we've all done it. And like, I mean, there's some pretty crazy people out there, but like for the most part, you know, like,
most people are good.
most people are great, and like nobody has a bad intention. Nobody's like trying to do like evil, you know. And so it's like we all make mistakes. It's part of learning and accepting that. In a second, you're able to be like, "Hey, I messed up. This is," and you're able to own that. That's where you open up for so much growth.
It's the power. It's the power.
It's crazy.
It's so
like
powerful.
an avalanche of just like, there you go.
Okay, more tools, more lessons. Yeah.
And
Instead
people,
of lying,
people open up to you,
or lying, denying, or reflecting, you what you're doing is deflecting the potential gains in your life that you could get from this failure, because you refuse to own it and get to evaluate it. You know, it's crazy. I want to circle back to earlier. You said that in the preparation there was a period where like a year and a half where you were only sleeping like 2 hours a day, and you know, and that sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy to some people. Like, oh man, that's just not realistic. It's not sustainable. I can hear them now, and it drives me nuts. But what do you say to people who, you know, people who think that way? Like it's worth noting that you weren't just doing that like for work or for what you were doing it for something that was extremely important to you and something that you were passionate about.
I wasn't paid to do this.
So I'm not like advocating that people do that, or commit to anything with that level of intensity that like isn't for them. But like even people who like who never even get a chance to chase their dreams because like the barrier to entry maybe is for a year straight you only get 2 hours of sleep a night, like, and that's the barrier to entry. But to your dream, and you put it off for your whole life because you don't want to, you got 50 more years ahead of you, but you don't want to do that for 1 year, so you're never going to actually give it a chance. Yeah,
and then you're going to sit at a bar and be like, I could have done this, or I could have done that. Even
but it just wasn't realistic to think that I could only sleep.
You know, in high school I was drafted, but like I could have done. I'm like, I hear so many of those, bro. I'm like, yeah, but what are you doing? Like, why you're here now telling me that you could have been instead of I did it. Yeah. And so,
or I tried it and I failed. I just couldn't, you know, whatever.
And that's the thing for me is like, I never really thought I was going to fail. Like it didn't cross my mind. And I was like, in the event that it happens, boo-hoo, big deal. I tried to be part of something greater than myself. And so people wouldn't understand. My teammates, Louis, why don't you just take a day off and come to the bar with us? You never party, you never drink. And I was like, dude, I'm doing this. And all these guys were like, you won't even make it out of one state. You won't do that. I'm like, okay. Yeah. But for me, it was also like, when I'm out there on the road and I'm dying, I don't want to have to think back on my training and be like, well, remember that one time you went out partying?
Yeah, you missed that day.
Maybe if I didn't miss that day, I'd feel better right now. Yeah. So that was haunting me quite a bit. And then also like, I'll always remember this. My very first day of training. So I would lift for 2.5 hours. Then I'd have 2 hours of swimming, 2 hours of running, 2 hours of bike every day. Different tempos, different ways, whatever. And so I get in the pool. I'm all excited. It's a new thing. You know, I've always trained for hockey, and now I get to do different training style. Get in the pool. I swim down the pool once, and I'm like, I can't breathe. I'm gassed. I'm not efficient. I'm panicking. I'm like, fuck. And I remember sitting on the edge of the pool for a second. I'm like, okay, well, you have two options. You can disappear off the face of the earth after saying you were going to skate across America, or you can just rise up and be like, maybe next time swim 2 times.
Yeah.
Just one more time. You know, you've made it through once. You can probably do it twice. And I was like, okay, well, this is what it's going to be like. This is my reality. And after that first day, I got to bed at 2 a.m. and had to wake up at 4. I'm like, that's what it's going to be, huh? And I was in front of my mirror, and I manifest everything I do. All my goals, I write them on my bathroom mirror everywhere so that I see them. And I looked at myself, and I was like, this is what you're meant to do or what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay. And I accepted that. I accepted, and I didn't let myself complain about it because this is what I was doing. Nobody was forcing me to do it. Nobody was paying me to do it. I have the choice. How blessed am I to have the ability to make a choice for myself?
Yeah.
So many people in this world that don't get to do that. They don't get to choose what coffee they drink. They don't even get to choose like if they're allowed to wake up the next day or not.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me it was like that's such a small problem, and I would always circle back to me being in the hospital. Like, do you know how much this little Louis would kill to just be able to go on a run outside?
Yeah.
And so these people, I just tell them like, it's okay. It's all right. Maybe you just don't want it. You like the idea of becoming something more. You like the idea of accomplishing a dream, but maybe it's just not what you actually want to do. You like the idea, and that's okay, but you need to be honest with yourself and stop lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Because like if it truly was what you were meant to do and be, then there'd be no option.
Yeah. What really bothers me is, I mean, that doesn't necessarily bother. Like now I just take it for what it is. Like I just look at them and I'm like, yeah, I know you could have done it, you know?
Yeah.
But what really bothers me are the people that complain about their daily, like you looked in the mirror and said, man, all right, I'm just going to accept that this is my reality right now.
Yeah.
2 hours of sleep, swimming, I can't breathe, and not complain about it. I'm just going to do it. There's people who will go to work every day, who will go to school every day, who will show up in their relationship every day and be miserable about it. You're complaining. Yeah. You're complaining about a relationship that you chose. You're complaining about a career path that you chose. You're complaining about a job when you can quit. You're complaining about, you know, an exercise program that you're doing. Like
you're paying for.
And it's crazy to me how many people, because all paths are hard. Like I don't care what whether you want to be successful, when you want to not be successful, you want to be married, have a successful relationship, you want to be single. Is it you can put the dichotomy of every single path. It's all hard. So the best that you can do is look at yourself in the mirror and be like, is this what I want? Yes. Okay. Accept it. And then no more complaining after that. There is no more complaining. Like, like this, what I'm doing, it's hard. But like, I never lose sight of the fact that this is what I chose. Like I decided to do this. Nobody forced me to do it. I decided to do it. I had a very nice, comfortable life. It was amazing. I decided to step out of this very comfortable path and onto this very uncomfortable path. How would it sound if I complained about it? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. But people, it's a pet peeve of mine.
That's crazy.
Because so many people complain about their condition, or they complain about their life or their job or their boss or their this or their that. And it's like you have an infinite number of opportunities every day. You can just choose a different one today, like if you want it.
Yeah. If you're making that choice again and you act surprised. And I'm like, dude.
And you act surprised that it's the same.
And I see it when I come back here, or wherever I travel to years later, and people are still complaining about the same things they were. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, but it's different for you. Oh, it must be nice, you know, like to go on a podcast or to travel or train. Or my favorite one is, now that I'm with First Form, they're like, people hit me up and they're like, oh, by the way, can you let First Form know that if they're looking for somebody to work with, like they can just hit me up?
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, do you know what I had to do and go through to make shit happen for myself and see that vision, and how disrespectful is it?
And you think that I can just bless you with the magic wand.
Like,
oh, you're an elite athlete. Yeah.
Yeah, good job. It's like, bro, like people, the amount of people, like even that was a really cool experience for me, actually. Some of my teammates at Missouri State, some of them were extremely supportive from day one. One of them promised me to be at Times Square at the arrival, and he was there. That was awesome.
Fire.
Years before I even accomplished it. And then some other ones were like, yeah, dude, you're crazy. You're not going to do it, blah, blah. And then I saw them when I skated through Springfield, and they're like, well, at first, like, we were like, no way he's doing it. And then we saw you started booking it and going really fast. And then we saw you in Springfield, and then we had no idea. And then some of them joined me on the journey for like a day. Well, they skated in the heat in Missouri for 2 miles.
2 miles?
And it was so hot and like intimidating on the road with the traffic. They called their parent to like pick them up, get them in the car, and then they followed us with the trucks. And at the end of the day, they're like, Louis, like, dude, I understand now. You're 2 hours asleep and you're training and not taking any days off, because like we've skated our whole lives and we lasted 2 miles on the road with you in the heat. Yeah. You're doing it every day.
That's crazy.
And for me, that was like one of the highlights of this thing was like, they had the courage and the honesty to being like, man, we fucked up. Yeah. And like, you know what you're doing is really cool, and we apologize, and like, we believe in you. Like,
that's fine.
And that for me, bro, I was like, wow, that takes a lot.
Yeah. But it's also another thing that I think of when you share that is like, part of it is just you have to believe in it before anybody, like nobody else is. It's like some people get mad when their close friends, family, or whatever don't believe in their goals, or don't believe in their dreams, or don't believe in their vision. But it's like, it's your vision. Yeah, it's not theirs. It's your goal. Yeah. It's not there. Like, the reality is, like, more people than not are going to say that your dream or your goal or your vision is either unattainable or stupid. And, like, you can't get mad at them for that because they just literally don't see it. It's only in your brain until it's real. But once it's real, they see it.
And they're like, oh.
And then they believe it. And then people will be like, oh, well, you know.
Just came together.
They get mad, or they'll be like, oh, it's too late now, or you didn't believe in me. But, like, it's unrealistic to expect them to believe it. Like, that you have no evidence to suggest that you're going to do this crazy thing that you just said you were going to do. You know, that's a part of it. It really is.
I agree with that. And it's like, I'm very thankful. I have a very supportive family. Like, they've always done everything they could, whether it was for hockey or anything. They always were supportive of me and also in a position to help me. But, like, they always supported me. And so I just see it sometimes, like, after my journey. I remember my mom was so worried that I was going to get into, like, this deep, like, depression and stuff. Yeah. And she kept telling me, like, are you okay? Like, are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling depressed? But she would, like, repeat it all the time. I was like, Mom, stop. You're, like, putting it into my mind now. Yeah. And, it was crazy. I mean, you know, you go from this, and after my journey was kind of what I felt during it. It's like I was on this crazy high, and then all of a sudden, like, my world, like, shattered. Because when you're away from all your responsibilities in real life for 45 days, it catches up to you really bad. Yeah. My visa was expiring. I couldn't afford school anymore because they screwed me over. I was supposed to graduate, and they told me no. Took all my financial aid away. My hockey coach that recruited me cut me from the team. Couldn't afford my apartment. Within 2 weeks after, like, accomplished this amazing thing for good reasons. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, how does that make sense? Like, what? And then that's how I ended up in Sweden. I got an opportunity and to leave. But, like, at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? You did this for all the right reasons. And, like, your situation is absolutely terrible right now. And the second I accepted that and acted on my next chapter, which was moving to Sweden, another goal of mine got accomplished. And that's when I became affiliated with First Form. And I'm like, dude, like, life is just crazy. Yeah. And you don't stop. If you don't stop and actually try to embrace, like, the good, the bad, the ugly, like, you can't.
Yeah, it's all about perspective. It really is. Because, I mean, it's completely different. But, like, when I was in prison, I there was a day when I just decided to start, like, accepting. Not even accepting. Looking at it from a different perspective. Yeah. I started saying this prayer every morning. I'd be like, thank you, God. Thank you for, you know, the roof over my head. Thank you for the bed that I got to sleep in. Thank you for the clothes I have to wear, for the facilities I have to use. Thank you, God, because I know that there's tens of millions of people in the world right now that would give their left arm to be where I am in a prison in the United States of America with 3 hot meals and, you know, all these healthcare and all these. And I said that prayer every single morning, and it completely changed everything started changing, just like you're saying. So it's just a matter of perspective. It's a matter of always looking at your situation from the bright side rather than from the pessimistic side. It's about, yeah, I don't like this job, but the good, yeah, my relationship's on the rocks right now, but what role am I playing? Or, so it's crazy. I can't even overemphasize how powerful just being in control, being aware of and intentional about the perspective the lens through which you look at your own life. Because you can just change everything. Like all these bad things just happened, okay, yeah, it is what it is. But what's next? Yeah. Okay. And I was talking to Elliot, who owns the restaurant next door, the biscuit joint, which if you're ever in St. Louis and you're at the coffee shop, you got to stop next door and get some breakfast from Elliot. I think he has the best breakfast sandwich in St. Louis, but that's besides the point. He's coming up on 1 year in business, and I was asking him this morning, hey, what's your biggest piece of advice, or what's the best thing you learned, right? Because I'm already past 1 year, but when I hit the 1 year mark, I took some time to reflect, and so I'm like,
what do you got?
And he said the number one thing that I learned is don't freak out. Don't freak out. There's days when shit hits the fan, when you run out of money, when all things are crashing or things aren't going the way they should be, or you get your first negative review or whatever it is, you get canceled like me. He was like, number one thing I learned is just don't freak out. It feels like you need to freak out, but if you just ride the wave. And he was like, for example, we had our highest revenue week and the most money we ever made in a week, and our worst day of business ever in the same week. So I have the worst day of business, and I'm freaking out. But the week was the best week we ever had.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? So you just can't freak out in the low moments,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm reminded of that just because of what you're saying. Is everything can be going bad, but just don't freak out, because life's not over. This situation might be over. This opportunity might be over. This relationship might be over, but life's not over. So don't freak out. Just figure out what life has next. Yeah.
What I meant to ask you, because you mentioned your 100-mile race earlier.
111, but who's counting?
No big deal. What was the biggest takeaway you got from that? And as far as your body, what did you notice anything? What was that like for you? Mentally and physically, the highlight or the weirdest things?
So that's a really, I was actually thinking about it earlier. I just refrained from sharing it because I didn't want to interrupt you. But you said something that reminded me of it earlier, which was the journey didn't push you to your physical limit. The 111 miles, it was the furthest I've ever run by 50 miles or 60 miles. So it was significant. But it didn't push me to my physical limit. It was crazy. I've been pushed to my physical limit in much less miles. I think I reached my physical limit. Granted, I was underfueled, underprepared. I didn't prepare for it the way I should have, but I recently did a 50-mile trail race, and I didn't finish DNF because I just was there. But anyway, I digress. So I felt the same during the 100-mile race, but I think it was inextricably tied to the mental thing that you're asking about, which I already also mentioned, which is the power of your internal dialogue, controlling your internal dialogue, the power of mantras, and giving yourself cues. So probably about 30 miles in, I started seeing people limp. And for whatever reason, when I would see, or I just not even limp, but I'll see their gait change, And mind you, I was 30 miles in. These people were probably only 15, 16, 18, 20 miles in, because I was in first place the whole time. But I would see their gait start to change, even ever so slightly. They start favoring a hip or whatever. And I said, that's a kink in their arm. I would say this in my head to myself. Every single time I saw somebody limping, I would say, that's a kink in their armor. No kinks in your armor. You're strong. You're steady. You're fresh. That was the exact thing that I would say every single time I saw somebody limp. And for that entire time, I mean, we're probably 5 hours into a 24-hour race. So I got 19 hours left. For that entire time, I would do that exact same thing. And you're strong, you're steady, you're fresh. If I wasn't seeing anybody's, limping or anything, I would still say you're strong, you're steady, you're fresh. Now, about 70 miles in, this woman says to me, because there was 2 ways you could run this race. You could run it as solo, or you could do it on a relay. Up to 8 people on a team. You just trade off. You run for an hour, your buddy runs for an hour. You just keep doing that. She was like, "Are you on a relay team?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a solo runner." And she's like, "Man, it's crazy. You look fresh. You look like you just started." And I was like 70 miles in, and the fact that she used that word fresh, it was so like, I was like, I am fresh.
You're right.
I am fresh, And it was crazy too, because I was on 75 hard. I woke up that morning at 5 a.m. and did my first workout in the hotel. Nice. I did my first workout in the hotel at 5. The race started at 8. And so my diet for 75 hard was the animal-based diet. It was like the one that Paul, Saladino on Instagram kind of prescribes. But so it's meat, dairy, eggs, fruit, and honey is the diet. And so I didn't use a single supplement. I didn't, like, at these endurance races, I'm sure you're familiar, they'll have like aid stations with like candy and soda and all these really fast sources of carbs, which is cool. There's some science behind that, but I was on 75 hard. So like every time I would come around, I'm doing all these laps, and the woman would be like, here's some M&Ms, some Skittles, some Coke. Nope. And I just couldn't. I was denying her all day. And she's like, "What do you eat?" And I'm like, "Oh, give me a piece of that banana right there." Like, and so all I was drinking was water with honey and salt in it. I was eating watermelon, like chunks of watermelon. I was eating bananas, and I was drinking fruit smoothies. Like, I was having my friend drive to a smoothie place, bring me some fruit smoothies, because I wanted to stick to the diet.
Yeah.
And I was a little worried about it, because I'm like, man, am I going to die? Yeah, am I going to die? Because I'm so used to using supplements to like build a stack, Man, I was the best I ever felt physically. I was 70 miles in, and I was like, I could fucking run 70 more right now. Like, I was so solid. Yeah. But I swear it was 100% the mental dialogue. Yeah. That's my biggest takeaway, was that the whole time I would like, because you can slip out of it. You have to be dialed in mentally. You have to be self-aware. You have to be, is my gait perfect? Am I keeping my form tight? Because all it takes is for you to, step one way. Especially when you're tired, your tendons and ligaments, your stabilizer muscles are so fatigued that all you do is step the wrong way one time, and you pull a muscle or something. So you had to stay dialed. But I would like let myself lull for a second, and I would catch myself like walking with a limp or something, and then I would be like, no, you're strong, you're steady, you're fresh. But I swear the reason why I felt so good was 100% mental, and it just reconfirmed for me what I already believed, which is like, life is all about controlling your mental dialogue. Like, when I was in prison, going back to when I changed my life, like, I shared this several times on the show, but I had a mantra: this is what makes the difference between you and them. Like, we were talking in the beginning about how strong that tendency to want to do what everybody else is doing and be similar to everybody else and think the way that they think and behave the way they behave. It's so strong. Well, it was the same for me in prison. Everybody was violent and disrespectful, and they would gamble and do drugs and all these things. Well, I wanted to change, and I was the only one. And it was so tempting for me to go, because that's all the shit I was doing. It was so tempting to me to just be the way I've always been. And every time I would mentally say, no, this is what makes the difference between you and them. And that mantra would get me through. Like, that's when I started running, was when I was in prison. And, all these things, reading, people would make fun of me or want to pick fights with me for like reading or speaking grammatically correct, or I don't do like the dap thing. I shake people's hands the right way. In prison, nobody does that. So, people would, poke fun at me for it and stuff like that. And I would this is what makes the difference. But that got me through. Yeah. It got me through. I had to break the tendency to be so opinionated about other people's lives. And so I had another mantra that was like, hey, Mark, you only get to live your life. I don't get to live your life. I only get to, Mark, you only get to live your life. That's it. Yeah. And nobody really knows the answers. You don't even know the answers. Time will tell whether or not I was right or you was right, or my path was better or your path was better. But right now, neither one of us knows. And so that's why you're trying your path and I'm going to try my path.
Yeah.
And there was just so many instances. And so I really believed already how powerful controlling your internal dialogue is, and like really developing mantras or cues for yourself to keep you going on the path that you want. But the ultra was like, I mean, like I said, the biggest takeaway was that, and it was something that I already believed, but like it just opened my eyes, because I've tried 2 other 100 miles attempts before that and failed both times, like significantly. Like I did 52 the first time, and then I did 70 the second time. This I do a 111, which wasn't even, it was more than 100. And and it was all just a mental. And not only that, but this one was kind of staged the worst. I was running a 0.3 mile loop, like running laps for 24 hours straight. Like it was crazy. Yeah. So those are my biggest takeaways, man. Yeah.
Cool. That's
but yeah, dude. Anyway, I got one last question for you, which is, you've done some amazing things. You're now a professional hockey player at the highest level that you've played at, and this is recent. That's amazing. You skated across America. You've overcome like a near-death experience, and you've had that experience, which is amazing too. But is there anything now, like you talk about being over in France and being, professional hockey player and the culture there, and you thinking to yourself, man, there's so much that I want to do, and sometimes you feel discouraged about that being in that environment. But like, what are those things? What is that, all that you want to do? Is there something big on the horizon?
So, well, our documentary about the journey next year, I think is going to really help me just put an end to that journey.
Yeah.
So I can, because this really just came to me.
Yeah.
Like it was just a shower thought that came to me, and I didn't have to chase it. And I want to do other things like this, because I'm like, well, if I survive the disease, what can I do? If I play hockey in North America, what can I do? If I skate across America, well, what's next? What can I do?
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes to not fall into the question of, will it ever be enough?
Yeah.
At what point am I just chasing something? But at the same time, I know that once I get to turn this page, this all comes out, we can inspire more people. I know that something's going to come to me. So I have a couple ideas. I saw a marathon in the North Pole that you can do. It's a 4.2 kilometer loop that you can do 10 times.
Yeah.
There's polar bears. So I would want to do that type for a cause. I would also like to continue my journey. I'm like, well, you skated across America. It'd be kind of cool if you skated from Western France all the way to Middle of Europe for chapter 2, and then chapter 3, Middle of Europe to the end of Asia.
Yeah. Then you skated across the world.
And then you skate across the world. So that would be cool. Then again, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like. I want to keep playing hockey as long as I'm having fun with it.
Yeah.
It's something I've done my whole life. It's a big part of my identity, which is also scary to think about sometimes.
Yeah. Who will you be after hockey?
I'm not just a hockey player, but so there's just a whole lot of things. Overall, I guess my main thing right now is just to like help people and show them that anything's possible. And whether that's through a conversation or being nice in a coffee shop or a bookstore, doesn't take much to do big changes in our lives and in people. People want to do all these drastic things. I'm like, just start small.
Just be a good dude.
Just be a good person.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. It really isn't. So as to what do I have planned next, I don't know. Just waiting for that documentary to come out. I'm excited to share more about it because, we all have a story. Everyone has a story. And the things we all go through are very different, but we all feel the same emotions. These are the same for us. People would tell me, like, I've never come close to dying. I could never do a journey like you did. Or probably like you, I've never been in jail. I could never do this. Well, okay, but in your life, you may have experienced things that have impacted you just as much as my hardships impacted me. And so how about you focus on that and reflect on that for a second and be like, hey, you also have a story to tell and utilize for greater good. So
everybody has a story.
Everyone.
Even if they would just stop trying to apply degrees to it. Like that's what they're doing. They're rating yours versus theirs, but it's like there are no degrees. No. Like hard is hard. It doesn't matter if it's hard. What was hard to me and what's hard to you might be different circumstances, but you experienced hard. Like it was hard.
Yeah.
You know, whether your parents getting divorced was the worst thing that ever happened to you, you say, oh, well, that's the worst. It's nothing compared to what you've been. I hate it when people say that.
Me too. It happened to me today again.
Because you have that experience, and like there's so much value in it if you would stop undervaluing it. Yeah. Like you just look at it for what it was and take what it has to give you. Then you can use it and apply it. It just drives me crazy that people do that. But yeah, man, I love what you're doing, and I'm really grateful that you took the time to sit down and chat with us. I learned a lot, honestly. Yeah. So yeah, I guess last but not least, where can people find you, follow you, and how can they support?
Yeah. So social media, all platforms is Louis Chaix, LOUISCHAIX. And then if we know we're looking for people to get involved in our documentary, whether it's through sponsorship, for an event, for a premiere, even to be a part of it as an investor, it's always, doors are still open for that. So if you want to reach out, you can contact me on Instagram, email, whatever is easiest. Yeah. And then if you want to get involved in the cause for the disease, there's also a page for Vanderbilt University where you can donate funds to for research. Yeah. Again, you know, we can all get involved and do a lot of things, but research costs money. So yeah, you know, whoever feels inclined to helping out in that sense, that's also very appreciated. So
heck yeah. When's the next time you're going to be in the States after you're done here?
I don't know. So I leave at the end of June, and then I'll probably be back depending on what movie festivals, pick our documentary, which events we can attend to, and how that works out with my hockey season. Yeah. My regular season goes till March. So depending on how far we go into playoffs or how the season goes, probably not until March next year. So got it. But then I'll be here because the documentary is going to be coming out, and we'll have a good event. June. We'll serve some good coffee.
Let's go, baby.
Red carpet.
That's right. Yeah. I need to get you an Omen patch put on your hockey jersey.
Oh, dude, that would be fire.
Yeah, that'd be fire. Or your helmet or something.
Dude, that'd be sick.
Cool. Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. And thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next time.